The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
And the rest of the world, right to you. I'm your host, Darren Jaime. Last week, America was gripped by images and sounds we never imagined experiencing. A small town, Newtown, Connecticut, torn apart by an unbelievable experience. An event that killed, senseless killings, I should say, and the children, 20 children, 6 adults at the Sandy Hook Elementary School. We open today's show by taking a moment to honor the victims and families of those who lost their lives but have made a profound place in all of our hearts. Right back with more Open right after this.
2 outs with a runner on first base. Now the big guy comes off the bat, hitting .342 with 92 RBIs and 36 homers. First pitch is out.
Chill raw and prepared foods promptly. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
And welcome back to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. Leading off today's show, we'll find out what One Bronx organization is doing to honor the lives of the 26 victims of the horrific school shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. After that, we'll hear about an initiative aimed at increasing literacy amongst the youth of the Bronx. And our legal corner continues with a discussion on gun violence, policy, and politics. Our political analyst will also be here to break down all the latest in national and international news. And finally, we'll learn tips on how to cope with trauma and reach emotional comfort. So stay tuned, because all this and much more is heading your way, because right now, we're officially open.
This is so cool, Dad. Awesome. This is so cool, Dad.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of siblings in foster care who'll take you just as you are.
The tragic shooting that took place at Sandy Hook Elementary School last week touched the lives of people around the world and the Foxy Family organization in the Bronx. They've come together to take a stand against violence and show support for the 26 victims and their loved ones. Here to share more about the event taking place right here in our very own borough tonight is the founder and CEO of the Foxy family and community activist, Ms. Evelyn Torres, Public Relations Assistant Eileen Marquez, and Second Vice President Annette Casper. We welcome you all to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess, Evelyn, I'll start with you. Obviously, a lot of people were concerned about, not just concerned, but literally, you know, devastated by what took place in Newtown, Connecticut. The thing that comes across the minds of most Americans is, what can we do? And right here in the borough of the Bronx, you guys are doing something.
Thank you, Grady. Yes, today, this evening from 6 to 8, the community is uniting, bringing together a group of people, children especially. We're going to have candlelight, we're going to have white balloons, and just continuing expressing our grief with the family, but also bringing hope that all together united, we will make a difference.
Mm-hmm. And that people have an opportunity to participate in this event, and you're asked to bring your children, you're asked to bring your loved ones, and when they come, what can they bring?
We're encouraging everyone to bring white balloons. We're encouraging them to bring a candle, or also mostly to bring all their kids. Knock on the neighbor, or you know, basically bring all the kids. You know.
How long after this took place did you guys decide we want to do something?
Immediately.
Immediately.
First thoughts when you're watching? I mean, obviously all of us are sitting there watching, and what's the first thoughts that come to mind?
Our nation, it's in mourning. I mean, how does somebody think about hurting our children? Those are the most innocent things in this earth. What are you thinking about?
Mm-hmm. And so tonight we encourage you to come on out and be a part of this celebration. It's going to be a commemoration of the lives that were lost, and also to really uplift and give some encouragement to those that have taken really a hard hit in Newtown, Connecticut. And so you guys have gotten together. Talk about the process of getting everybody together. How hard was it to get people together? Were people just like ready, willing, and able?
Foxy Family has an organization of over 3,000 plus members. So it's very easy to just make a call, send a text, or even send a Facebook for anything that anyone in the community needs. So when things like of this nature happen, or of any type of situation, the CEO immediately expedites the plan of what she wants to be done, and together we get unified and we expedite and make sure that it gets done.
Mm-hmm. Eileen, give us a little bit about your thoughts about this whole thing. Obviously, when you sit there and you watch this, you're watching it on the screen. And first of all, I guess most people say this cannot be real. But then, how does it feel for you now being able to be a part of that helping and healing process, particularly for those of us who've been affected here in our borough?
It was devastating when you're watching the news and you're seeing it, like you said, it's horrific, and your mind and your heart just like goes out to all these families and all these children, and you really want to sit there and like, wow, what can we do? How can we reach out? Obviously, we united in prayer, united again with the family. What can we do? And just try to reach out and just say, we're here for you in prayer, and we just want to extend our love to you all the way to Connecticut over there, to all those families.
And so the Bronx will be coming to take part in this celebration and commemoration of those who've actually lost their lives in Newtown, Connecticut. America is doing a lot of things across the globe, and literally across the globe, across the United States, but right here in the very own borough, we're going to have the opportunity for people to come together. And once again, if people are coming, I know you want them to bring candles and other things. Let's go over that again.
What we want to do is I know that when this happened, a lot of people felt helpless. They didn't know what to do. A lot of us ran to our kids and immediately hugged them and realized that, you know, each day is so important. You know, so we want to be able to give our community an opportunity to show their grief, how they're feeling. That because I know everybody's mourning, they're feeling this. We are all feeling this. Mm-hmm. So we want to give our community an opportunity to come show. This is how you can help. Yes. This is how you can encourage and let them know we are here for you. We are here for you. We know your pain. We understand what you're going through. So we encourage everyone to please. If you felt helpless, if this touched your heart in any way, meet us on 161st Street today between 6 and 8 as we honor these angels. 16 of them were barely 6 years old. The other 4 were 7. So this touches our hearts. When you look and children can't play in the playground, they can't go to a party. So many kids have died this year, too many. And now it's in the school. Something has to be done. And the Foxy family, as an organization of many, we're going to make sure that message gets sent out. That no mas, no more.
That's right. Evelyn, how much is this going to be a healing process, not just for those who are coming, but for yourself? Because obviously, while you're putting the event together, there's got to be a sense of healing for you as well. How much of this will be a healing process for you, each of you individually?
It is a healing process. I don't have a time, but I am going to hold on hope, hold on God, and uniting with my friends, my family, and the world in heart, in faith. And we're going to go through this. And knowing that, I always say the good people are the majority, we're going to pull through, and we're going to hold out on hope.
Healing for you tonight?
There is, again, no time. It's a process. It's just part of, again, being there, supporting, and just praying.
You can never heal from this. You can never heal from this. You can only pray. You can only remember. You can only share, hug, and love each other. But this is something that you never recuperate from. It's just moving forward. That's it.
Well, Evelyn, thank you so much for putting this event together. Eileen, thank you for coming and sharing it. Annette, keep up the great work. And certainly we pray that today will be a beginning of the healing process somewhat for those of us in the borough of the Bronx, or at least a time to show our emotions and a time for us to really come together and unite right here as a borough. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for receiving us. Great.
All righty. Got to take a quick break, but coming up, guess what? After this, we're going to hear about a movement, and we're shifting gears. It's going to be a movement to spread literacy around the Bronx. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. Open's going to come right back right after this.
You guys have me.
Welcome home, man.
So here are the keys.
Congratulations, it's officially yours. I'm sure you'll have many happy years here.
Except for you, because you'll be gone 3 years from now, struck down by the same disease that got your father. So you won't be around for them. And sadly, it could have been detected early with a simple test, but you didn't have it. Okay, who wants to check out the backyard?
For a list of tests every man should have, go to ahrq.gov.
Such a wonderful time of year. So wonderful to be here with all of you. Dreidel-filled stockings, menorah-top trees, and carolers come knocking, our hearts are now at ease. Water goose a meal is a miracle of meat, and if you're looking for a deal...
Our next guest has partnered with the Fordham Business Improvement District to create the Fordham Road Literacy Program, distributing books throughout the borough of the Bronx to increase literacy rates among young people. And here to share more on the program is New York City Council Majority Leader Joel Rivera. We welcome you to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Haven't seen you in a while, but it's good to have you.
It's been a while.
And on a good note, we must say.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk to us a little bit about this. So you are really trying to be proactive in increasing the literacy in the borough of the Bronx.
Well, I'm a big believer that reading is fundamental. You heard that, when we were all young, that we need to be able to read. We need to be able to, understand the language and understand, that reading is pretty much fundamental. So part of the effort that I'm putting forward is that I want to, through the City Council, in collaboration with the Fordham Road Business Improvement District, provide 4,000 books for young Bronxites within the community, so that way they can enjoy the art of reading. The libraries are amazing, Fordham Road Library and all the libraries throughout the borough, but kids need books within the homes, and kids need to be able to just go onto that bookshelf and pull out their favorite book and just open it up to see the pictures, but also to read the words and see the associations. And the goal is to increase literacy within our kids, so that way they'll be better prepared for school and for what life has to bring before them.
Let me ask this question. When you talk about books at home, we talk about seeing books at school. That's important. We talk about the library and having that. But how important is it to have books at home?
It's extremely important. I mean, the reality is that kids today spend way too much time on Xbox, PlayStation, or just turning on, the TV.
My friend calls it video crack, yeah.
Well, hopefully they're watching shows like Open, but
that's
if
right.
not, they're watching stuff that may not be feeding their brain. So we know that, it might be easy for a parent to put, the TV on to consume, to take care of the child, but reading needs to be a major part of a child's focus. And when we look at the test scores in schools, and we see that the reading scores are not where they should be and the math scores are not where they should be, it's easy to point the finger at our teachers and at the school system, but the education of a child is two-part. It takes place at school, of course, but it also takes place at the home, and we need to make sure that parents are involved, and part of that process is just before bedtime or during study time. Take 20 minutes to 30 minutes with your child, open up a book, and just enjoy the fine art of reading, which is, quite frankly, a lost art. And, whether it's buying a physical book, going to Barnes & Noble, or going to your local library, pulling out a book, or taking advantage of this literacy program with the Fordham Road BID, the Fordham Road Literacy Project, we want to make sure that the message is loud and clear. Reading is still fundamental.
Who gets the books and how do they get them?
Well, we have allocated the funding to the Fordham Road Business Improvement District, and they are teaming up with local libraries, local schools, local not-for-profits, daycares within the community. If parents want to get more information, they could obviously call my office, 718-842-8100, or they can contact the Fordham Road Business Improvement District, and we will be sending out dates of when these events will be taking place. And I know at the Fordham Road tree lighting, one of your co-hosts, Rena, she helped to give out, I believe, 500 to 600 books to the young, children that came out to not only receive toys, but also to receive a book.
And the books are so important nowadays because, when you look around and you find that the educational, the literacy rates, especially in our schools, are struggling. How does it feel for you being able to be a positive contributor in trying to help with the education of our kids and improving those literacy rates?
I mean, we all have to do our part. So as a government official, as a city council member, part of the process that we have is the budget process. And we always try to figure out what's the best way we can have a positive impact on our communities. And it's an investment. Education, for our children within the Bronx and the city of New York is an investment in the future, because one day they will grow up and be like you, or they'll be a host of a great TV show, or maybe they want to be a professor or an attorney or a city council member like myself. But to get there, they need to be able to, have the tools, and part of the tools that they'll need is the ability to read, obviously, and to be, where they need to be educational-wise, to get there. So this is part of an effort in making an investment in the leadership of our future, and understanding that is a multi-approach phase that we have to take, where we have to, supply the schools with the tools they need. We also have to let parents know that they need to be involved in the reading process, in the learning process of their child, and together we can make a difference.
Being the council majority leader dealing with the situation of education in our borough, how are we looking in 2013 of tackling the issues and the things that we've got going on with education, particularly around the city?
I mean, we always, as a city council, we've made education one of our top priorities. So we spend probably, as the city of New York, about $18 billion, per year on educating, the 1.1 million students that we have within our school system throughout the city of New York. And it's a substantial number, and it's a mind-boggling number because most small countries don't have a budget of $18 billion. But it's not only money. It's about making sure that the schools, are properly managed, making sure the principals have the tools they need, the teachers have the tools they need, and making sure that, the parents know about, PTA meetings that are taking place within schools, because it takes a whole entire village to raise a child. So that's one of the focuses that City Council has. One of the things I've been able to do is supply not only books in this case with the Fordham Road Literacy Project, but also to make sure that our schools are outfitted with the latest technology, science lab, computer labs, so we can bridge the digital divide, because we want our young minds, these precious minds that are coming from the Bronx, to be competitive with any student from across America. There is no reason why in the wealthiest city, in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, why any child should be failing in their academics. And that's why I'm proud to have teamed up with the Fordham Road Business Improvement District and the Fordham Road Literacy Project to make sure that young Bronxites can have access to, books that they can take home and they can read, they can enhance their creativity, because we know that versus just watching TV, reading, it enhances your creativity and you start to create images in your mind based on the story that's being told. So that's why this is part of a great project.
So with 2013 coming around the corner, what do we expect coming out of City Council this year?
Next
year, I should say.
Next year is going to be an interesting year. We have a lot of, obviously there's going to be a significant amount of turnover politically. So we're going to be talking about, different things versus, how do we handle the city budget? How do we, make sure that laws that are being proposed get instituted in a timely fashion? And then we just yesterday passed a resolution based on the tragic event that happened in Newtown, Connecticut. How can we make sure that the tragedy that happened in Newtown, Connecticut, in Sandy Hook, does not happen in any school here in the city of New York? And it's about working, together with the schools, working with the police department, and working with all the authorities to make sure that, we can, curtail violence within the city of New York and within our nation. So.
Yeah, and it's important to say because, we're looking right now, everybody looks at their school and say, it could be me. We could be next. Are you confident with the way that things are going as far as the way that the educational officials have been handling, following this Newtown situation?
I think everybody's coming together and trying to figure out what's the best approach. Fortunately, knock on wood, we haven't had that type of situation happen here within the Bronx or the city of New York. But we have had, if you look at the storylines for 2012, 2011, kids have gotten shot. Right. Whether it's in schools or outside of schools. 4-year-olds getting shot, 6-year-olds getting shot. Some have happened within my district. So it's all about the issue of gun control, gun violence, and what is the best way to tackle, that situation. And of course, the debate's taking place primarily in Washington, and we're going to hear more about that with our great panelists coming on later on. But it's an ongoing debate, and it's about public safety and how can we balance, the needs for public safety with the constitutional rights that exist. My personal opinion, I don't know why any civilian needs the same type of weaponry that our U.S. military, uses when they're going overseas to fight wars. There's one thing, the right to bear arms is one thing. It's another thing to have better weaponry than our police departments have. And that's always the concern, so, that's right. I think that gun control needs to be at the forefront of the debate in Washington. But back to this, I want to thank you. Team up with Fordham Road, and you have 4 more days to take advantage of the
Where do they go now? Where do they go?
For this, any store within Fordham Road, if you bring your MetroCard or bring this flyer, you will get 10% off of any of your purchases. And it's part of, the Give Back program that the Fordham Road Business Improvement District and the Fordham Road businesses want to give to Bronxites. Shop locally, get involved locally. These are businesses that have invested in the community and care about the neighborhood.
Councilman Joy Lee Joe.
Thank
you so much for coming and sharing with us. Got to come back again.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know when.
All righty. We got to take a quick break, but guess what? Coming up after the break, we're going to hear from our legal correspondent who will share with us. But first, the Fordham Road Business Improvement District did hold its 8th annual, Sparkling the Hearts of the Fordham tree lighting ceremony, where they did launch the new literacy program in partnership with the councilman. And so our correspondent, Rita Valentine, as she said, handed out books, but she also has the story from being right there. Let's take a look.
I'm Rena Valentin, and we're here at the 8th annual Sparkle in the Heart of Fordham tree lighting ceremony, where hundreds came out to stand online just to visit Santa.
I can't believe how many people are here, and I can't get over that they came out and that they're standing in the rain and that they're waiting for Santa Claus and they're waiting for the presents and they're waiting for the raffles and the prizes, and it's great. I think it's awesome.
Glad to be here with the Fordham Bid. This is their 8th annual celebration. We're here to remind everybody, hey, we have great shops right here. Fordham Road is the 3rd largest shopping district in the entire city of New York. We should be proud of that. We should come and support our local merchants. And it's a way that the merchants, through their bid, every year they give a little bit back. They make sure they bring a chorus here that's singing. You have Santa Claus is giving out some presents. We have some great raffles that we're going to give away. And it's just a way to remind ourselves, hey, we can work together to make sure that we make the Bronx a bit better every single day.
You should shop Fordham Road, but specifically 66 stores in the bid throughout the entire Fordham Road bid are offering 10% discounts from tonight, December 7th, all the way through December 23rd. Awesome discounts. You got to get out and take advantage of that.
We are very proud of our community. I think that the support is unbelievable. They see that we care, and it's important, and you have seen it today.
As you can see, people are still standing out here in the rain as we kick off the holiday shopping season right here in Fordham Road at the Sparkle in the Heart Fordham Road tree lighting ceremony. And make sure you visit their website for the 10% discount by going to fordhamroadbid.org. I'm Rena Valentin reporting for BronxNet.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And welcome back to Open. As always, you can tweet us by checking us out at Twitter on BronxNet TV. And we encourage you to stay interactive with our show because we want to let you know what's happening on the show, as well as some up-and-coming guests, as well as hearing your feedback. Well, today our Legal Corner will continue in a discussion on present gun laws in the United States and the policies behind them. We welcome now our legal correspondent, who's also attorney, David Lesh, to the show, and good to have you, David.
Well, you know, I think it was a good time to skip the legal series that I've been doing, the A through Z, and I think it was a little more timely to discuss guns and gun control, particularly as it relates to constitutional law. So I want to start off with just a little bit of a reading of the Second Amendment. So
right, because that's where most of the controversy centers around the right to bear arms.
Exactly.
What is exactly? What is
let me read it to you. All right. It says a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, when you look at that particular amendment, the question is, do you want to take it in piecemeal, or do you look at it all together? And what I mean by that is when the framers had the mindset to put together the Bill of Rights, when they were thinking about a militia and the right to bear arms, are they necessarily suggesting that we want a militia to be created if need be, and we want the militia to be able to bear arms during a crisis or any particular time that they need to bear arms, whether it's against another government that's coming in to fight our government, or is it maybe, do we want a militia to be able to come in and overthrow our own government in a revolution? These have all been debated in the courts. If you take that point of view, that militia and bear arms were meant to be looked at together, then you're not necessarily taking the view that as an individual you have the right to bear arms. You're taking the view of, well, that amendment was really meant for a militia, a group of people together to come together to bear arms.
How did it get to this place?
Well, throughout history, the amendment has been read as if you have more of an individual right to bear arms and not as a group. Okay. And in support, the judges have looked at your right of self-defense. But self-defense is really written in through criminal law, not through constitutional law. Your right of self-defense is a criminal right to defend yourself. It's not a constitutional right. But because we have been given more of an individualistic right to bear arms, the courts have been giving broader range of that particular amendment. And even though back in in '74 we had the assault rifles ban, which expired, in '84 was expired in 2004. The court has really been giving more and more rights to those of us who want to keep a weapon, whether it's in our homes or have it concealed. And because of this, and because crime has been, in some respect, crime has been lower in many parts of the country, it's given the NRA even more legitimacy in arguing that it's okay to carry weapons, it's okay to have these guns because crime is down, and the Second Amendment gives you the right. But when you have such a traumatic event that occurs, such as that occurred in Connecticut, and other types of events that have occurred throughout our country over the last year, it's a tipping point. It makes you look at the amendment and start to say, hold on a second, is this really what the framers had in mind? Did they want us to be able to walk around with an assault rifle on our property or in different places? Well, you'd say, well, probably not. That's not what the whole purpose of the amendment was. It was to secure yourself maybe against government or against people going against the government, not so you as an individual can walk around with this type of weaponry, which has become so much more sophisticated. Mm-hmm. So you have something like this that transpires. And the NRA now is finally coming forth with a couple of statements. Not necessarily supporting their position right now, but at least making their presence known, the National Rifle Association. But I think because this has happened, we're going to see much more legislation being pushed, certainly by, if not by the president, by now I think he has his Vice President Biden in charge of the agenda now, to see if we can whittle away at some of the strengths that the NRA has put forth. Remember, a lot of our legislature in Congress who voted against gun control were thrown out of office. Mm-hmm. So that's why the Democrats do not make this as a platform as they once did. They're like, we have bigger fish to fry. This isn't something we're going to push. So I think now, you say, why now? Why is this going to change now? Well, the tipping point has occurred. It doesn't mean that you're not going to not have the right to have a handgun in your home or different places. But I think certain weapons are going to be banned.
Yeah, and I think they should be.
And they should be. And I think it takes an event like this to make that happen. But remember, from a constitutional point of view, you have to look at that Second Amendment again. And Judge Scalia has read that amendment to mean that you separate militia from right to bear arms. And right to bear arms means you have an individualistic right to bear arms. And that means that right can't be taken away. But a lot of people feel, well, you know what? You can't read it that way. Mm-hmm. And it's certainly, you can't look at the way the framers has decided how important it was for them to have this amendment, because Judge Scalia doesn't even go into the debate that went on in creating that amendment. He says that don't even look at the debate. Well, I think you should look at the debate to see what happened all those years ago as to why they created that amendment to begin with, because he's using that one amendment as justification to support many of his decisions, which unfortunately are destroying gun control in the United States. And I think he and the courts are going to take a good look at the amendment now and maybe read it a little bit differently in the next few months to see when these challenges come before the court. So we'll see.
Because I've had conversations before with people when it comes to law. There's certain things that are called the law, and then there's called the spirit of the law. And it seems as though right now we understand what the law is in regards to the Second Amendment, but the spirit of the law is not really what's being enacted right now with Americans in bearing arms.
The Constitution in itself is a living, breathing document. That's what we like to say. It doesn't. It just shouldn't be read by just word by word. You have to interpret it, and it evolves. The way we evolve as people, the Constitution is supposed to evolve as well. And to have a strict interpretation of that particular amendment and just right to bear arms and leave it at that, any kind of arms you want, well, it isn't going to hold water anymore. The argument is not valid. So there are going to be certain, listen, we do require licenses in certain states, and we do require training and background checks. Fine, we do certain things to help protect our citizens, but it's not enough. We need to do more. And I think this is the time, and I've said it a few times while I'm sitting here, but this is, again, the tipping point. And you will see in the next 6 months, things are going to change with respect to gun control.
And before I let you go, let me ask you this. How much are we going to see, from your perspective, things be tied up in the courts when it comes to regards
you know what? It's a conservative court, but I do think things are going to change. I really do. I think in the next 6 months to a year, we're going to see a whole different philosophy on gun control.
Things have to change.
Yes.
Dave, thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
All righty. Well, we encourage you, please stay where you are, because guess what? When we come up next, we'll have our political analysts who will be talking more about that, the NRA and gun control laws. But first, the Verizon Foundation, the Technology Student Association, and Samsung Mobile sponsored Verizon Initiative App Challenge, a national competition awarding $10,000 to the winning school to enhance learning in the area of science, technology, engineering, and math. Our BronxNet correspondent, Arlene Makoko, was out there, and she brings us the story.
The information in books could really help you when you're doing a project.
They are part of a national competition. Shirley Quesada, a sixth grader at Bronx Academy of Promise, and several of her classmates are part of a team sponsored by Verizon that is calling on middle and high school students to provide insight for an app for a mobile device to enhance learning in the area of science, technology, engineering, and math, also referred to as STEM education.
One of our ideas were to create an app based on Sims, but an educational one. With reading a certain place, and when you click on it, then you can go to whatever store you want, like a library. This device, it holds many different books, so we can read whatever we want.
Verizon and the Technology Student Association, who are also sponsors, are basing their competition on information they've gathered that shows that more than a third of middle school students use mobile devices for their homework.
What it really is for middle school and high school students to come up with a concept. They don't have to actually design an app, because we know not everyone has the resources to do that. But we just have to come up with a great idea, submit the idea to us by January 18th, and we're going to judge all the different ideas and give 10 winning teams a Samsung Galaxy Tab for each student, and the schools are going to get $10,000. So the idea could be anything that they want. It has to be creative and unique, but it has to address a need or problem in their school or community, and it has to include STEM.
We're very excited and honored to have been chosen for this competition. You know, we have been working really hard. I call, Bronx Academy of Promise a family, and a family has been working really hard, and the students and the teachers, and to have this acknowledgement, this validation of all our hard work, a wonderful opportunity for our students and for our school.
Also busy formulating designs are Ronay Williams and Brianna Valdez.
Our idea is to come up with an app that is for people to learn about, that could help them with a subject that they might be having difficulty with, such as reading, math, science, or one of those subjects.
There was one time that we were doing reading, and then I came up on a word that I didn't understand. I was using my mom's phone, and I would wish that if I click on the word, it would tell me what it meant.
Students from around the country will be submitting their ideas for apps beginning December 1st through mid-January. Winners will be announced in March. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
From the Connecticut school shootings to the new Secretary of State, there's never a shortage of stories making the headlines. Here now to break down all the latest in news and politics is our political analyst and professor at SUNY Maritime, Mark Myritz, and we welcome you to the show. Mark, as we were sharing in the last segment with David, you can pick up a little bit with David, because you said when it comes to gun control and these gun laws, you have a disagreement there.
I wouldn't disagree with David necessarily, because we really don't know. We're just trying to prognosticate what's going to come down the pike. But there are many reasons why I think, while we believe we're at a tipping point, as you've said, we're at a point, a threshold point, because of Connecticut, I think a reality check would be in order. In order to have real gun control, there would have to be a major political shift in this country. And that would mean, for example, that the Republicans would have to support it. Now, some senators have come forward, mostly Democratic senators, have said, I'm tired of this, I want gun control. But what does that really mean? And what will be the lasting impact of the Connecticut shooting. Because the problem if you have is not just the Second Amendment, and I should mention about the Second Amendment that the Second Amendment has not been deeply adjudicated in the Supreme Court. There have really been 1 or 2 major cases recently about it, but not many over the history of the court. And as was discussed previously, there's a confusion about the language, about the well-regulated militia, that leading language, and then the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Now the question is how to interpret that. Well, if we're going to be relying on the courts, that's going to be very problematic. It can come out either way, and so far, as was discussed before, Scalia has his point on the Second Amendment. But if you look at the First Amendment, for example, the freedom of speech, you will see, for example, that the court has had an expansive ruling on the freedom of speech with the Westboro Baptist Church, which I think you might be familiar with, where these people go to funerals, and I think they even wanted to go to the funerals in Connecticut, I understand, to protest their own philosophy. And they won a court case, even though they were standing at funerals stating to these parents, this is in the case of soldiers killed in Iraq, that your sons deserve to die. The Supreme Court did not stop them. They won the case. If you go to their website, you press the button, please read the Supreme Court case. The Supreme Court supported their right of free speech. So you have to be very wary. Where the change will have to come is in licensing, is in regulation, and political risk-taking.
What are we going to hear on Friday from the NRA from your perspective? They said that they're going to be drafting a statement. They should
well,
be
they
coming
said
forth
they're
with
going to make
statement.
meaningful contributions. So, and I think it's kind of there's a real wide range of things that could be involved. At the one end of it is the assault ban. And on that one, I think President Obama has already given if you're reading the tea leaves, he's saying, I'm going to reinstitute that. He's very disturbed. When he was speaking in Connecticut, he was very, very upset. It's very clear. It's ridiculous.
Somewhere along the line, somebody has to say something.
That's right.
I mean, if you have a weapon that is greater than the U.S. military right now,
absolutely,
something's wrong. In your house?
Now, Mayor Bloomberg has said he doesn't want to hear any more statements. He's been real upfront on this. He wants action. So there's going to be action. But the NRA has a pervasive influence in the Congress. Also, we have a culture of violence in this country. You know, they had just brought out that this young man, the killer, was watching violent videos. I mean, besides the fact of his whole medical problems and all that, violent videos. And again, the question about the violent videos, freedom of speech. We have a culture of violence in this country. Incidentally, and again, just an observation, on the evening of the prayer vigil, when the president was in Connecticut speaking about that, there was a movie on called A Christmas Story. I don't know if you saw it. What's the basis of this movie? A child dreams of a rifle. He wants a rifle for Christmas. Now, it's an air rifle. Mm-hmm. I want my rifle for Christmas. I just thought that was not only in bad taste, but there's too much rifles and violence. If you turn on television today, children are watching this. Yeah. Children are watching this program, and they're not dissuaded. Now, in the specific case of the mother taking the child to target practice, that's just an aberration. But the fact of the matter is there's too much out there, too much gun violence. And you still have the silent NRA supporters that are putting their heads down right now. They're not saying anything. Who's speaking out? The people in favor of gun control. The others are quiet. I had a conversation with a colleague, let's say, and he was saying to me, we need gun control. Why? Well, we have to protect ourselves against the government.
No, and I was sharing with you. I said there's somebody that I spoke to the other day who had the audacity to say, which led to a huge argument with myself, that the principal should have been armed with a gun, and if they would have armed with a gun, maybe more lives would have been saved. They really were in favor of Americans actually bearing arms, when my point to them was, people don't want to carry guns. There's a lot of people out there who just don't want to carry guns. You're coming from the perspective that everybody should carry a gun, but there are a lot of people out there who say that you shouldn't. And this is the debate that we're going to be having for a long period of time. But the question that's going to happen is who's going to really come out victorious in this? Because even though the president says he's going to use his power to do something, the question is how effective will he be, or are we just going to hear political rhetoric saying the president says I'm going to use power?
Well, Darren, also, even if the president, which I think he's been great on this, showed great leadership, that was a tremendously terrific speech that he gave. He shows his leadership skills are getting better and better and better. And even if he can go to the Congress, even to get the Republicans to come on board. And I have to say about the Republicans, this is a wake-up call for the Republican Party. On the fiscal cliff, on gun control, either the Republican Party is going to go into oblivion, or it's going to become more moderate.
Well, but we are seeing some Republicans.
It's going to try. Now, let's suppose they pass a bill. Let's suppose they pass a gun control bill. What do you think is going to happen then? They're going to take it to the Supreme Court. They're going to challenge it. Someone's going to challenge it on constitutionality. And then we go right back to the court with that Second Amendment, with the same issue again, a well-regulated militia. This was Madison. If you actually look, it's interesting, in the Supreme Court cases, they analyze Madison, the father of the Constitution. They have his actual drafts of how this was written. That was not the first draft. That was the last draft. There was a lot of writing involved. And of course, as I think you spoke about in the last segment, again, the Founding Fathers. What would the Founding Fathers have done? This is a question. If they knew about an AR-15 or an AK-47, it's impossible to know. So this is going to go back to the court. So what we need is a presidential, let's say, bully pulpit, which is what TR used to call it, has a tremendously influential thing. And I think Obama can make a lot of strides, but can he make the total stride like in Japan? Japan has complete gun control, ammo control, counting every ammo, every gun. You have to take a test to be able to, all kinds of restrictions. The UK has tremendous gun control. But why is that? Because it's a cultural thing, because the culture supports it, because the society supports it. In our society is divided. And there are the people that are, I mean, to my mind, that are, you know, rational about this, that are thinking this is a valid thing, and then there are other people out there thinking the government's out to get me, well, I need to arm the principals.
But I think,
and how do we get them to come on board?
Somewhere along the line, somebody has to say, like the president said, enough is enough. And this is where I think most of America says enough. Most of America says enough because while this tragedy in Newtown is senseless, and I can't even put into words when you're killing 20 kids who are 6 years in age and under. Unfortunately, this isn't the first tragedy. And in the Obama administration, as he said, this is the fourth time that he's been out to comfort families who've been victims of this, including one that was actually politically related, the shooting of Gabby Giffords. When you look at this, somewhere along the line, America is getting to the place where they're saying, too, enough is enough. And if I take the pulse of America from what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing and what's going on, it seems as though the majority of America wants something done, but the question remains, what shall be done?
And how far? And by the way, the media response to this has been, I think, horrific in a way. I couldn't believe that they showed someone with a long-distance camera taking a picture of the funeral of this child Noah Posner, of the digging of the dirt into the grave. It's just that they will not. The point to which they'll go. There's no extent to which they will not go to drill this point down. So what happens is there is a killing, and then it gets sensationalized.
Right.
So the people out there that are watching this, that are offbeat and off and maybe have these problems and maybe sitting around doing violent video games and they're watching this, they're thinking, aha, sensationalism. It goes on and on and on, and the media has not been able to control itself. So I think that there's a lot of self-analysis and self-introspection that needs to be done, as you said, about our culture. The quote was, I think someone said, 300 million guns are floating around in this country. There's something culturally about this country that we have to have some thinking about and some worrying about the future.
That's right. Well, Mark, of course, we'll have you on later on to discuss a little bit more about this, and thank you for coming and sharing with us.
My pleasure.
And as we said, we'll continue to follow this, and we got to take a quick break, but why don't you stay where you are, because guess what? More Open is coming up right after this when we return.
So here are the keys.
Congratulations, it's officially yours. I'm sure you'll have many happy years here.
Except for you, because you'll be gone 3 years from now, struck down by the same disease that got your father. So you won't be around for them. And sadly, it could have been detected early with a simple test, but you didn't have it. Okay, who wants to check out the backyard?
For a list of tests every man should have, go to ahrq.gov.
In the aftermath of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, many people who have seen and heard the story don't know how to cope with the trauma following this event and the trauma that their children will face in the future. Not just the children of Newtown, Connecticut, but children all across America. Here now to share tips on how people can find emotional comfort is the founder of the organization Meaningful World and author of Mass Trauma and Emotional Healing Around the World, Dr. Annie, how do you pronounce your last name?
Kalajian.
Kalajian, I don't want to mess it up. Dr. Annie Kalajian is here with us, and she's got 3 books, actually, Mass Trauma, Healing, and Emotional Healing Around the World. And then you also have Forgiveness and Reconciliation, Psychological Pathways to Conflict Transformation and Peace Building. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you.
It's unfortunate that we have to bring you to the show.
Yes.
But when we look at situations like this, and you see a mass assassination, and you see blood and carnage of elementary school kids, 6 years and under, you've got a lot of emotions. Number 1 is the sense of sadness. Number 2, on the hearts and minds of Americans, is a sense of anger.
Yes.
A lot of people are angry, and they want to cope, and they want to deal, and they want to get through. I had somebody ask me on the plane, how do you make sense of this, and how do you get through? I turn it over to you.
It is very complicated and very horrific situation to make sense, because it's basically comes from a lot of emotional pain from the part of the perpetrator, who is a victim in another way of our culture that was mentioned earlier, a culture that really glorifies violence in the video games, in the recent 007 movies, where they glorify revenge, and they call it sweet revenge instead of bitter revenge, where generations are going to cope with this. It's not just the parents. It's going to go on for 7 generations if intervention is not done. It's a very, very complex, and it goes on like any kind of diabetes or physical illness. It transmits into generations. Now we focus on getting annual physical checkups. We need to start thinking about psychological checkups, evaluations. We talk about profiling and gun regulations, but we only profile the person who's owning the gun, not the family members. There are family members that are disturbed or challenged emotionally, psychologically. We have to, if in fact you need to have an arm in your house, then the entire family need to have psychological profiling. There needs to be change in this macho gun associated with power. It is the weak who carries a weapon, because you are unable to really use your words and be able to come emotionally come forth and express your real, true, authentic feelings. So you rely on things, a knife or a gun, to express your frustrations or feelings. So we have to really change the way the wars are going on in the world, because the children identify that as power. Well, our country's in war in 3-4 countries, so why wouldn't a teenager would do the same?
I asked this question a little while ago. I said, when I thought about this young man, and this one thing that we did do in the media, we're not giving his name because he doesn't deserve to be glorified or sensationalized. We don't want to. We don't want to do that. But somewhere I think about if he actually thought about what this would actually do. I know that he might have felt a certain type of way and did what he had to do. But let me pose it from this perspective: when you look at what you do, you're just concentrating on you. There's a lot of collateral damage that falls out.
Exactly.
America is shaken by this. We're shaken by this. Every person, even though that they don't live in Newtown or go to Sandy Hook Elementary School or have relatives that go to Sandy, every American, even up to the President of the United States, has got this mental trauma. Somewhere along the line, do people even think about the trauma that they're causing when they go through acts such as this and senseless acts when you shoot in Colorado or to go to a movie theater? Is there any thought?
No, not at all, because they project, they say all the problem is the outside. They have no problems. They actually think they're doing a good thing. They may be hallucinating or have delusions. They're following some Satan's quotation or God is speaking to them or something. They may have actual hallucinations. So that's why we emphasize that you express your feelings, even if it's just a thought. Talk with your family members so that other people would say, oh, let's reconsider that plan. You know, if he had talked with his brother, his mother about his plan, or his father, someone. But usually mass killers, they plan very silently, long-term planning, but they don't communicate with others. So it shows that he was isolated. All the plan was done because who would agree with the plan if he had shared with any person in his life? They would have brought him to help, or at least told someone that could have helped him. So that's why we emphasize the importance of expressing your emotions and feelings, even if they seem the right thing at the time to you. But you need to discharge them and get some perspective from other people, release it, and really get reorganized and focus on what it is that you're trying to do. Are you insecure and had trauma in that school? So then we have trauma relief interventions through art therapy, through psychotherapy, through drama therapy, through EMDR, through electromagnetic field balancing, through Bach remedies, natural essential oils. There's so many integrative healing modalities that we work with on the mind, body, and spirit levels that we could have helped that person. Well, but the stigma is the other thing that we need to address. Insurances are not paying for mental health. I have clients who need therapy, but their insurance is not paying, and they're poor, they can't come to therapy. And my heart goes out. I don't know what would happen with them. So we need to change to make the mental health a priority, because there's no healthy body without healthy mind and spirit.
I want to get the chance before we get out of here. Your book is called Mass Trauma, Emotional Healing Around the World. They're rituals and practices for resilience and meaningful meaning-making human-made disasters.
That's the human-made one, addressing terrorism and genocides, and this one focuses on hurricanes and tsunami and so on.
So the question is, before I let you go, how do we cope? Those of us who've been watching this, how do we deal? How do we get through this and seeing this and doing this? How do we recover?
Yes. Shows like you are doing right now are important platforms to express our feelings. The Foxy group that is doing a ritual tonight of candlelight vigil and celebrating the survivors is another way. Community celebrations. Staying away from sensationalizing TV and violent video games, and really embracing how important peace is. Not just peace and opposite of war, but peace within. How not to curse when somebody cuts you off while you're driving a car. Peace is everyday practice. And violence begets more violence, like Martin Luther King said. So how we cope is by helping one another too, because when one helps another, both become stronger. And that's how we can cope and go through this and change some of our policies.
We're going to bring you back, okay? Because that way you can come back and talk to us a little bit more about this, because this is something that we really need to do. And so we want to thank you. And I want to tell you, you can get her books right here, and there you can see they're listed right here. Forgiveness and Reconciliation 1, and the Mass Trauma and Emotional Healing Around the World. We encourage you to get Dr. Kalajian's books, especially during a time like this. If you want to try to make sense of it, and some of us are still struggling to try to make sense of this, but you just need all the help that you can get. So something that you might be able to wrap your brain around, just to really think about how you can get through in troubled times. And thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. Thank you so much. You got to come back and we'll talk a little bit more about this again. You definitely shared some insight with us.
Wonderful.
All right, now before we close today's show, I want to remind all of our Bronxites that Senator Gustavo Rivera, Assemblyman Nelson Castro, and Councilmember Fernando Cabrera have also partnered with the St. Barnabas Hospital, Unity Community Health Center, and they're also administering free flu vaccinations today until 2 p.m. at the Morris Senior Center. So if you want a free flu vaccination today at the Morris Senior Center, you can go to 80 East 181st Street in order to keep residents healthy this season. Well, it's definitely been a pleasure coming to your homes. Of course, we want to thank all the guests for joining us, especially you.